Hello, my name is Kelsey Ross. I'm a senior product manager here at Appian, and today we're going to be talking about how you can use Appian for faster and better DevOps. Now, for those of you who aren't familiar with the presentation world, this first slide is meant to be called an attention step, right? Like we get something that pulls you in, grabs you, and holds you there for the rest of the 30-minute presentation, right? But if you look closely, what I've done here is what I like to call a lose your attention step, because I'm reminding you of all of the holiday shopping that you have yet to do. But please stay with me. I promise I have a lot to go over, and you're better off paying attention. So why risk it, right? Why take the chance of reminding you of all the holiday shopping you haven't done and losing you to online shopping for the rest of the presentation? Well, as I was prepping my material for this talk, I was thinking about it, and I really can't think of a better example of DevOps best practices in action than the holiday season, right? It's the greatest shipping event of any season every year, and the basic principles are the same. You need to package up your latest and greatest features and rely on a robust, resilient system and processes that takes your newest, latest, and greatest features and gets them in the hands of your customers. At its core, it's DevOps in action. All right, so put the metaphor down for a little bit. What are we actually going to be talking about today? So I'll go over what is DevOps. So regardless of whether you have a robust CI/CD pipeline or you're new to this concept and you're just trying to get an understanding of where you want to invest, I promise you this presentation has something for you. We'll learn about DevOps in Appian and what that means, and then finally wrap up with what's next for you as we wrap up this conference. All right, so I've already been using this term a lot, but what exactly is DevOps, right? So at its core, it is the ability to bring your development and your operations teams so close together that they merge into a single term, DevOps. The symbol that we use for DevOps is the infinity sign, right? It's in order to continuously integrate the feedback from one team to another, bringing your development and operations teams closer together. Now, you tend to see a lot of different attributes associated with DevOps, and you might see really extensive diagrams around the infinity sign. But here at Appian, we like to do things simply. So we've reduced it down to what we view as the core tenets of DevOps. That is building, testing, deploying, and monitoring. Now, another term that you might also hear in the industry is DevSecOps, the sec being security. So what happened? Did we just drop out security because it's the least important thing, right? No, of course not. We've simplified it even further. So security is baked into the platform. So most of the issues that you'd have to consider with a high-code solution, like some of those attacks that Malcolm was talking about earlier today, you wouldn't have to worry about if you're building on the Appian platform because it's baked into the system. So you can really focus on the core issues for enhancing your development experience, those four core tenets: build, test, deploy, and monitor. Okay, so why DevOps? Well, like I said, you want to be able to get that value to your customers faster. So you're going to be able to, if you create these processes and these practices that ensure faster delivery, you're going to be able to get more value to your customers using a consistent and automated pipeline, but you're never going to cut corners on quality and efficiency. And all the while, you're going to ensure that you have security baked into your solution. So what does this look like in action? So we're going to go through what we kind of see as the classic pipeline for our customers. The pipeline consisting of three environments: your development, test, and production environments. And then two primary personas. That's your developer and your team lead. Now, this can scale up to whatever your needs are, but we're really just going to focus on, at its core, what are the roles of those two different personas. Now I'm back to my metaphor. I couldn't let you stop thinking about the holidays for one moment. We're going to be talking about this through a use case of toy vendor registration. So come along on this journey with me. Let's pretend that I work at a certain business, and typically around the holidays, we have a bunch of different vendors who are coming in who want to register with our company in order to sell their toys through our company. Now, it's a crush of people trying to get in around the holidays, so I, as the employee, want to automate this process. I want to take what was once a manual intervention step where I have to manually put in all of the company information. I want to get that off of me being kind of the stopgap for that, and allow these companies to self-register. So I'm going to use that new great feature that you all heard about, portals, to create a public-facing portal for self-registration. And we're going to walk through how you can use this low-code platform to create an automated deployment pipeline to get that portal to your customers just in time for the holiday season. So like I said, here at Appian, we have the 4 core tenets of DevOps, and we want to start off with building. But before we're building, we have to first understand what we're contributing to, right? We have to understand the basics of the application and the environment in which we're building. So as soon as you hop into the designer experience, you're automatically connected out to the greater community of Appian developers. You can see the latest and greatest resources that are available to you, any kind of announcements like the 22.4 release notes. And then with our quick access cards, you can get right back into that development experience and pick up where you left off. So here we're in the Appian Explorer view, where we're going to get a great understanding of the core building blocks of our application. So you can see here who else is building in the application. If you're a team lead, you might want to provide certain documentation around the engagement so that your new developers don't have to come to you to have a meeting to discuss what's new in the application. They can kind of self-onboard. Once you have an understanding of the documentation, you want to get an understanding of those objects. So you can see through the UI, we have your UI-based integrations, your different data, and you're also connecting out to the different objects that make up your application's capabilities. So here I can see the core site that's being used for my application, and then I also want to understand the basic data structures. So we algorithmically provide the top data sources within your system and show you the different key elements of it, like any actions that you can kick off from it, and additionally any related records within your application that make up your greater data fabric. Now, once you have a general understanding of your application's core objects, you can then obviously drill down into the individual object and get great visualization tools and a better, more granular understanding of the individual fields that make up your particular data structures. Now, additionally, as you build, there are certain norms that you want to conform to, like certain naming conventions and security structures, but we know that you might be moving in between projects, and so we don't want you to have to learn new norms every time that you onboard. So your team lead can go ahead and set up those basic structures, like the application prefix that you use and the basic groups that you use for security, so that you never have to think about that as you build. Okay, so now we have a basic understanding of the environment that we're working in. We have an understanding of our application. It's time to start building. To build, you want to use your package as kind of your core workspace for your application. So I'm going to go ahead and create a new package for the story that I'm working on of creating this new portal for self-registration. And you can also provide a link to whatever ticketing system that you're using in order to keep track of that work and connect it between Appian and, let's say, Jira. Then I'm going to start building. So you can see I've created a new portal, and I get that great basic security structure, again, being reinforced at the application level. Everything looks good from a security standpoint, so I'm just going to go ahead and click through and start working on my portal designer. So here we've splashed down in the great new portal design object available in 22.4, where you can see a general overview of the different configurations that you might want to set for your portal. Things like your branding, service access, but I want to start building immediately. So I'm going to start off with what we call the primary interface and use that forward flow to start creating my interface. Now, like I said, this is a process that already exists within the application, right? I'm taking the manual process of inputting that customer data, and I want it to be a self-registration process. So I'm going to go and see if there's actually anything that already exists from the front end that I could maybe retool and reuse within my portal. Here we have the manual process for registration today. I'm going to use that show objects view to actually show what is backing my end user UI. So here I can see, okay, I maybe don't need everything. I just need this particular subset of fields. So I'm going to go ahead and click straight from the end user UI right into the back end where I see the greater design experience, and I can start extending that functionality. Here, now that we're using it in two different places, I want to have a rule input that controls whether or not I'm using it for the manual use case or whether I'm using it for my self-registration flow. So I provided a new rule input and then also added a description that's going to help other developers in the future understand what we were getting at when we checked whether or not this is coming from a portal. Now I've added that new rule input into my primary portal interface, and I can see the preview within the interface designer. Now it's relatively scant right now, but I want to continue iterating on this and extend the functionality further. But for now, I want to check out that publishing process just to get an idea of what it looks like at the end user UI. So I'm just going to toggle the configuration to make this a published portal. Go ahead and save, and you can see that the status banner in the top automatically updates to let you know that your publishing is in progress, and will let you know when it's updated to published, where you can then access your end user UI from the front end. Now, additionally, we've baked some testing directly into the portal. We know that you don't want end users accessing your portal before you're ready, and so we've added a UUID to obfuscate the portal a little bit more so that when you're developing, you have the ability to continue developing without unwanted users on the system. Now that we have our portal published, we're going to want to go to design.appian.com and learn more about those design patterns and best practices to expand on this functionality and create a beautiful end user UI for our portal. Now, there's even more that we want to provide within this portal story. We've got kind of the basic functionality down, the initial form, but we want to extend on what's possible. We want to add some categorization of these vendor types that we're creating within the portal. So I'm going to start by expanding our data fabric and incorporating more records into my story. So here, once again, we're driving from the package view. We're going to start building out a new data relationship. I'm going to create a vendor type that's going to allow me to categorize these vendors who are registering with our system. Again, the security is set for you, so all you have to do is click along. And once I get into my record type designer, I'm going to start configuring those new fields. I'm going to use our new codeless data modeling capability in order to have Appian help me generate the fields that I'm going to need for my data source. So here, and obviously I will, of course, use sync to get the latest and greatest features. So here you're started off with kind of the baseline that we would expect for any record type to have. But then you also have those quick access links that allow you to add additional fields with just a click of a button and extend what's being captured within your data model. Then once you've configured all the fields that you need, you can continue on in your process and make sure that everything is looking good for your record type before you go to any next step. So now I'm reviewing my data model. I also see that it's going to create the table for me in the back end, but then also allow me to download the script. That's going to be crucial. So we know that as you build and you're creating your data model, you also need to have a way to collect all of the data and information for when you go to the next environment. This has never been easier with packages. Now when I go back into my package, record types have already downloaded my database script, and I'm going to be able to associate that script alongside the object changes that I'm making. This ensures that if I need to pass my work off to a team lead or a deployment manager, I'm rest assured that my SQL scripts or any database modifications that I need are already right there living alongside my object. Now, like I said, this is data fabric, right? We want to make those connections. So I'm going to go ahead and go back to my primary data source and make sure that it's connecting to that new vendor type field that I'm creating using the add relationships capabilities, where I can configure visually the connections between these record types, and with just a couple of clicks, make sure that I have that relationship set, and then get a great visualization of that relationship that I've created from right within the record type designer. So our data's all set up. Now we need to get it working for us. So right now, all we have is a table. We want to make sure that we're able to take actions off of it. So I'm going to go ahead and go into my record type designer and see what actions I can create. Here you'll see we have a great wizard workflow that's going to allow you to create actions for your record type. So obviously, we want to be able to specify new types of vendor types, new categories that we might want to collect. So we're going to use that create button. We never want object generation to be a black box. I'm a new developer. I'm trying to onboard into this project, and maybe I'm new to Appian as well, so I'm trying to learn as I build. You can see here, Appian gives you an overview of how these objects relate to one another and how they're used. So now I have a great understanding of what's being generated, why it's being generated, and how these objects relate to one another. And with just a couple of clicks, I've not only created real value, but I've also got a greater understanding of how Appian functions. Appian is all about reinforcing best practices as you build. So we've gone through a couple of the object types. I also want to call out some great reinforcement that we have within any object with our design guidance. Design guidance comes in 2 tiers. You have recommendations and you have warnings. Recommendations are a set of recommendations that we've gathered across all of Appian builders of kind of key details that you want to keep in mind as you build. Now, you don't necessarily have to take our advice on these, but we would recommend that you do. If it doesn't suit your use case, though, you can always dismiss any recommendations so that they're not still showing in your object. Warnings, however, are the highest tier of design guidance that we can give you, and you're going to want to make sure that you always address those. Warnings are flagging something that's going to have a real impact at runtime, and you're going to want to make sure that you address any warnings within your design objects to have the expected experience for your end user. And that's it. We've built out our portal. We're ready to go to the next steps, and we want to make sure the long-term maintainability and reliability of our expressions as we go to the next environment. So let's take a little look at our testing and monitoring tools. As you can see here, I've switched to my team lead persona. So the team lead's going to come in and ensure that the greater environment is running as smoothly as possible. And for that, we'd really recommend using the guidance dashboard. The guidance dashboard provides a great overview of your overall environment, package, or application health. We'd also recommend using it for peer reviews, as it can really give you a guided experience of certain issues that you might want to check in on before you go to the next environment. So in the case where we're building out this new portal enhancement, you can see we've filtered down to see just the issues related to this particular package. And we can check for things like security warnings, where maybe your groups aren't set exactly the way you'd like to. You can see the overall test health within your application, where you can see whether or not people are writing those expression rule test cases, and whether or not they're executing correctly based on the changes that you've made. You can also check to see whether there are any unreferenced objects. Unreferenced objects are basically clutter in your system that might slow down new developers onboarding onto the system. So periodically, you might want to check back in and clear those up a little bit. Then down in the bottom right-hand corner, you can see that we have the dashboard for the overall warnings and recommendations that are still outstanding within your package. Again, really make sure that you look at those warnings before you go to the next environment to ensure that you have the expected runtime behavior. Now, as a team lead, we just onboarded this new developer, and we want to make sure that we're having the expected functionality for years to come as we iterate on this application. So I want to have even more guardrails in my system. So I want to configure a post-deployment process. A post-deployment process is as it sounds, a process that executes as a result of your deployment. So anytime that you have a successful deployment, it'll kick off this process, however you define it, where you can have it integrating with maybe external services that run integration tests or execute your internal expression rule test cases to ensure the long-term maintainability of your code. So let's configure that now. Here you can see I go into the deployment view. The post-deployment process is configured at the application level. So this means that any time that you deploy a package or an application, it'll kick off this process for you. So here I'm going to specify a process model that I've already built, and all you need to give it is a deployment UUID so it knows where to store your information. I'm going to click OK. And then we can take a look at what this actual process model looks like. Now, this one is relatively simple. All I want to make sure that happens as a result of my deployment is that I kick off those expression rule test cases that I have written for my functionality, and that team leads get an email about the success rate of those test cases. Now, once you've created that, you want to be able to deploy that to the next environment so that any deployment that comes into your target then has those changes. We now allow you to configure application configurations as part of your package so that you can send those global settings that you've created to the next environment. Previously, you might have had to stop development so that you could send your entire application, including all the objects and its configurations to the next environment in order to get this functionality. But not anymore. All you have to do is ensure that your configurations are set and that they're added to your package, and you can deploy those global settings alongside all of your object types and database scripts. And now, the moment you've been waiting for, deployment, right? So we've set ourselves up for success, where we have all of the testing and monitoring tools that we need in order to ensure the stability of our expressions over time. We've built out the new capabilities, and now we want to deploy them to our target system. We're going to do that by using automated direct deployments. So here, all we've done in the back end is set up connected environments, which allows us to send packages or applications to a specified target environment. So here, directly from my packages view, everything looks good to go. So I'm going to go ahead and click on Compare and Deploy, where I can see all of the environment options that I have to send my package to. So here it looks like we're connected to test, and there's a connection to production, but I know that I can't push to production because direct deployments are not enabled there as an additional guardrail. Next, I'm going to use the inspect step, or the prepare step, in order to check that all of my object contents is looking good and ready to go to the next environment. So I can see those objects, the database scripts that I've added are all ready to go, and my deployment manager doesn't need to contact the developer to check to see if they're there. I always like to check if there's anything conflict detected, because that means that my definition on my dev environment isn't matching test. So here it looks like there was some null handling that was maybe hotfixed somewhere along the way and didn't quite make it back into the dev environment. That's no problem. I'm going to go ahead and merge the expressions right from the comparison mode and save off those changes. I'm then linked directly to the object where I can check to make sure that everything's working as expected. And now that I know that this object actually hasn't changed and it was just something that wasn't backported, I don't need to deploy it. And I can go ahead from the prepare step and remove that object so that I have a clean deployment of actual added functionality to my next environment. Next, we're going to go through inspect. Inspect checks to make sure that your deployment should go smoothly to your target. Here it looks like there's a warning, but I know that that's going to be addressed because my database script has already been associated with my package, and so my records should be able to sync properly. I can provide whatever details that I need, maybe some additional context around the deployment in the description, a new name, review all of the contents that are going to be included, maybe do some package maintenance by saying that it should remove the package or delete the package after I deploy because we're no longer building, we're ready to deploy to the next environment. And then as soon as you deploy, you are linked to the deployment view where you can see a historical view for your deployment contents. So this view is going to be available to you throughout deployment. You have a 30-day archive on all of the contents. It's going to give you an idea of what objects were deployed, whether any database scripts were included, whether or not you've included your application properties, or an import customization file. Additionally, it's giving you an idea of the pipeline that you've created, as you can see in the bottom right-hand corner, where it tells you where this package has been. Additionally, once your package has deployed, you can see that we have the publish portals capability in the bottom that lets you know whether any portals were deployed as part of this deployment. Now, that was our dev to test story. We know that production tends to be a higher restrictive environment, and so you might want to have additional guardrails there. Here we would offer governance for your production environment. This allows you in the admin console view to set whether or not there are reviewers for any deployment coming into the environment. So here in production, our team lead is going to go in and they're going to say, yes, I want all package deployments or application deployments to be reviewed by somebody within the reviewers group. And then any package that's then sent to this environment will send an email to that team, and that team can go and review, where they'll be sent to the deployments view again, and they'll have the ability to specify whether or not this is an approved or rejected deployment, and provide any comments that they may need to in order to let the team know what needs to change in order for it to be deployed. We also know that consistency is key here, right? Like you want to make sure that whatever was deployed into your test environment is what was tested and then subsequently deployed to your production environment. So reusability is key. You're able to, as you can see, we've gone back into our test environment, and you're able to use an exact snapshot of exactly what was sent to test at that time and reuse it for your deployment to production using the deploy to another environment capability. It'll send you through a wizard-like experience like compare and deploy, where you can provide any additional import customization information in order to configure it properly for your next environment. Now, that was a lot about Appian, and I hope that all of you went to the Aegon talk yesterday where you could hear the other side of this story. But one of the great things about Appian is its flexibility, right? So whether or not you're new to DevOps and you maybe are just initiating DevOps within your company and you're really not sure what tools you should be using, you can tell an Appian-centric story by using the out-of-box tools that I just went through. Or you might also already have a robust CI/CD pipeline and you need Appian to integrate with it. If you're in the latter group, we'd recommend using our external deployment tools. Our external deployment tools allow you to import and inspect deployments via the APIs. All you need to do is go into your environment and configure it to be external deployment enabled. And then you can integrate Appian into whatever CI/CD pipeline that you already have using whatever tools you need, like your Jenkins, GitHub, Git, anything. All right, so that was a lot. Let's recap what we just went over. So as new developers, we were able to successfully onboard ourselves onto a new application without bugging our team lead. We used our low-code tools in order to quickly and efficiently build out to a changing market need. We used our tests and monitoring capabilities to ensure the long-term maintainability and our stability of our application over time. And then finally, we set up that automated direct deployment pipeline that allowed us to quickly get that value to our customers. Now, if you want more DevOps, this wasn't enough for you. Of course, we have more resources for you. You can read more about our DevOps capabilities in our blog post, visit our site, also check out the DevOps ebook. Additionally, if you're interested in that external deployment story, we have a great quick start guide available on Community that walks you through how to use our native out-of-the-box APIs in order to integrate into an existing CI/CD pipeline. I believe the example that's used is with Jenkins. So what's next for what's left of our conference? If you're a new customer, please sign up for ACE. ACE is Appian Community Edition. It'll give you a chance to work with our platform and gain understanding of all the capabilities it provides. And if you're an existing customer, please upgrade to 22.4, where you get to see those great new portal capabilities that we have. That's it for me. Thank you so much for your time. We hope you enjoy the rest of your conference.